On the Road to Larry Robbins' Bookstore by Eleanor Wilner. On the road to Larry Robbins' bookstore are many monsters. The past long shadow cast where the statue of Rizzo once stood, the sweet smell of tear gas from the put down of recent uprising, the comforting sight of safe sex, its wilted cast off condoms, the needles that line the back streets like the floor of a forest of pine, and everywhere the warm steam of dog shit. The lonely crowds lost from the real in their cell phones, the stands where they sell umbrellas from Hong Kong that break in the first rainstorm, the brisk Koreans cutting endless melons into small squares for passing lawyers who carry them in little plastic boxes up 30 floors to rooms where they grind the faces of the poor in the towers that Rouse built and for which he has paid no taxes. Or the stale pretzels which carbon date to some time before the signing of the Declaration, smeared with mustard whose color is a yellow never seen in nature. The hot dogs resembling that part within easy reach that almost got Clinton impeached. Till at last we step over the homeless and the potholes, for which our city is justly famous, and enter the small door of memory to what was once our truly independent bookstore, Philly's own city lights extinguished by Amazon.com and trickle-down economics. We pause to recall how we used to pass through its serious downstairs with a literature of social redemption and climb the winding and disintegrating stairs to where the happy voyeurs once lounged among porno magazines, where the body count was boundless, and where, among friends and lovers of meaning, with poems we all made our last stand for the language, where the flame of free speech never flickered, still burns, for here we still are, with the muse, that battered hag who tears her split hairs and rattling her bones, happy to be here at Moonstone, happy to feel so at home. On the Road to Larry Robbins' Bookstore. And was an original poem that was written by Eleanor Wilner for the first edition of Poetry Inc., which had its 25th anniversary this year. And Eleanor was very instrumental in making that happen. So good evening. My name is Charles Carr, and welcome to Philly Loves Poetry, a collaborative program between the Moonstone Art Center of Philadelphia and Philly Can. The focus of our program, as always, is to give our viewers the experience of the rich culture of poetry in the city of Philadelphia. So tonight we have a very special guest, our Philadelphia Youth Poet Laureate, and someone who I really tried to get on this program for quite a while, and I successfully succeeded in doing so. So welcome, Cydney. Cydney Brown is the Philadelphia Youth Poet Laureate and author of a book of poems entitled Daydreaming. Cydney is a junior at Abington Friends School and has been writing poetry since she was in the 5th grade. The Philadelphia Inquirer, 6ABC, Philadelphia Citizen, Fox 29 have featured Cydney's poems. She loves that there are no limitations to writing. She has recited her poetry at Benjamin Franklin Hall, Lincoln University, the Ideas We Should Steal Festival, and Kelly's Writers House. Cydney's poems explore the topics of social justice, self-image, love, and nature. She won the first place in the National Hip Hop Workshop Poetry Competition and loves to perform spoken word poetry. Cydney is a Gold Award Ambassador Girl Scout who has acted in improving her community. She wishes to inspire people to speak their truth and share poetry with the world. So welcome, Cydney. Great to have you on Philly Loves Poetry.
Thank you.
So I would want to first ask you, how does one go about in becoming Philadelphia's Youth Poet Laureate, which we have had maybe four, maybe, or I don't know, maybe you're the fifth, and all of them have really been outstanding poets and have gone on to do great things. So we are expecting that you'll do the same things. But how did you get here?
Yes. So I basically, there was an application that I filled out. And on the application, you kind of submit your poetry, a video, what kind of community service you do, and if you're active in helping your community get better, and like what ideas you have for your term as Youth Poet Laureate of Philadelphia. So yeah, in like July, I submitted the application, and then or June, and then I found out in late August.
Well, that's great. Congratulations. I imagine you were probably in some stiff competition because we had so many really great young poets that are coming up in Philadelphia. So, what what have they charged you with as your mission uh, now that you are the city's youth poet laureate? Of course, I imagine also you're here. You are the youth poet laureate in the midst of a pandemic, and I imagine that might have kind of, I don't know if it slowed you down or what. So, what is your mission? What are you hoping to accomplish, and have you feel you've been successful in accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish?
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, they don't really like tell you exactly everything that's going to happen because you can't really prepare yourself for all the opportunities that might come your way. But they tell you that like this is your role. You're the youth ambassador of poetry for the city of Philadelphia, and like people are going to be asking you to do different activities and go to different events and just like be prepared for that. At first, it was a little nerve wracking because I wasn't used to like doing so many events in like a short amount of time. But honestly, I think being the youth poet laureate during the pandemic was really helpful and allowed me to engage with so many more people via Zoom and go into different classrooms like between because my schedule is different because of school. I was able like during my free times go to visit schools virtually or do events and recite my poetry and teach kids like how to write poems. So it was really great, and I think it was really successful, especially during the pandemic.
Well, that's great. So, all in all, you're you're still our Philadelphia Poet Laureate. If you look back, what do you feel that you have accomplished? What are you most proud of in terms of, I've taken on this role and this is what I really feel great about?
Yeah, I think one of my most proud moments was when I recited a poem that I was commissioned to write by the Philadelphia Museum of Art for their reimagining of one of the entrances at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. That was great because I've been just so much more comfortable writing poems for different events, and to be able to be around such like the mayor and Representative Donna Bullock, it was really just a great opportunity for me to meet new people and to recite my poetry in front of like a crowd. Whereas it's been really hard to do that and difficult because of the pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a great event.
Right. And so you recited right in the new space,
Yeah, so it was at the ribbon
yeah,
cutting ceremony. So it was
right.
outside, and then everyone went in after I finished my poem.
Well, that's a great space. My wife and I just visited about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Amazing space. It's really quite impressive. They did a great job. So that's really wonderful. So they say in the discussion or the write up that you're supposed to develop a project. Is that true? And was there a project that you had, or was your project, I'm the ambassador and I'm going to do these kinds of things to expand poetry in the community?
Yeah, so for me, my project was Words to Action. So I did a workshop series that teens and anyone younger could come to, and we learned about how words have power and how you can take your ideas and specifically about like social justice and the Black Lives Matter movement, and take your words, write them down, and then turn it into like a call to action through poetry.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So having this role now, I mean, really stepping up another level for you, how has it influenced the art of of your poetry? Do you see that as it expanded, the horizons of your poetry, the themes that you write about?
Yeah, I think it's definitely just expanded how I write poetry, because usually I don't like being constrained. So I like to be able to write freely about whatever I'm feeling, or what I want to say. But now that I've been given like different events to write for, or different themes that I have to make my poetry pertain to, it's been a great opportunity for me to realize that I can still have my voice shine, even if I'm given a prompt or I have to write about a specific topic.
Well, that's amazing. Um, so you describe yourself, I think self-described, as an activist poet. And can you describe for our audience? I mean, I pretty much know, I think maybe of people, but how you carry out this title that you've given yourself as an activist poet. So, what is the range of things that you're active in?
Yeah, so I would think it's just in various poems that I've written, it's really about making people aware of like the political climate, what's going on, and how they can support, and different ways of how I've viewed them like lacking, and how they can improve. I wrote one poem entitled "Protect Black Women," and in it I basically explain how during the time when everyone was talking about Breonna Taylor, they were using it in a very vulgar way, and people would comment, make their captions of their post Breonna Taylor when they posted like a bikini photo, and I thought that was really inappropriate. So I kind of just like to use my platform as a way for people to understand like what they're doing wrong, and how they can improve, to make everything more equal, and prevent people from making jokes out of Black lives, and how they can better help the movement.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you really kind of came in at a really critical time in America with, the death, and the trial, and what the other things with Breonna and Black Lives Matter and things that happened in Philadelphia. And it must have had a significant impact upon you and your poetry.
Definitely.
So, you have, now I don't know if this predated your being selected as Youth Poet Laureate, but you have your own website.
Yes.
And it's, I went on and I was fascinated by, it's a great looking site, one, and then you
Yeah.
have these videos of you reading your poetry. So that's really kind of a standard repertoire that you have. How frequently do you come on and either post or perform on the platform of your website?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like my whole life I've had a website. I've always felt like the need to show people what I'm working on, or to write my thoughts or anything on a website. So usually, like that's kind of like where I am now, because I've had one since I was in think fifth grade. I'm just putting my work out there, and then I kind of update it every few months to see where I'm at. So I'm usually, when I have the time to record a spoken word video, I'll usually upload it onto social media. So I'll upload it onto my Instagram, and then after I get the time, I'll upload it onto my website, or after I put it on YouTube, because that's usually the links are kind of connected there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really that's something like I lose track of time when I'm building my website, because I really just love being creative, adding different colors and videos, and kind of playing around with how that looks.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I really like the site. It was really
Thank you.
very colorful, and your performances. I mean, you go out into the street and you read your work, you recite your work, and that's very powerful, I think.
Thank you.
So you're of course paired with a really remarkable woman and a remarkable Philadelphia poet, Trapita Mason. And how much has that had an influence, on you, and how has that kind of, maybe focused some of the activities that you've been involved in?
Yeah, so it's definitely been great to like have her as a mentor. I think the first event where I met her at was at the Benjamin Franklin Hall. We did an event there with Laureen Carey and the Philadelphia Orchestra, I'm pretty sure, and it was great because it was the first time we met, and then after that, I think we've done a couple events, and I've collaborated with her with Healing Verse Philly, which is great. And I did a workshop with her, I think last week at Radnor Memorial Library, but that was virtual as well. But it's been great because I get to I have her number, so I get to like text her if I need any help with any projects, or when I was starting to first do events, I got to ask her questions and lead workshops like what am I supposed to do, and she's been really helpful for giving me guidance and everything I've been doing. So that's been great.
Yes. Yeah, she's really a remarkable person, not only as a poet and artist, but really in what she does in her life and in terms of community mental health. Can you speak a little about what she has launched? This one, as I don't completely understand it. One can call this 1-800 number. Then what happens? How is that?
Yeah. So Healing Verse Philly is there to like promote mental health during this like time. So basically, there's a bunch of like different artists and like Philly poets who come on the line each week. So you call this 1-800 number, and then you're going. If you're on it like long enough, then you're going to hear a poem by the artist of the week. And they're going to share their poem, and then that's supposed to make you kind of feel better because poetry has, the ability to just alter your mood. So after you listen to it, it's kind of like an exhale, and you feel so much better after you've listened to it.
On and they recite a poem, and then people that call in on that number can hear a poem and really kind of digest how that affects their world. Thank you for explaining it finally to me. I really now understand it much better. Um, so you have this project that you've launched, and I think it really kind of predated you being selected as the Youth Poet Laureate, called, well, it's the acronym GOOD. Can you tell us what that stands for and what you're trying to achieve with that?
Yeah. So that's my program called Project Good. It's Girls Overcome Obstacles Daily. It was a mentoring program that I made during the pandemic because I thought it was really important for young girls to understand the differences between healthy and toxic relationships, things like a positive self-image, self-care practices, and self-love. Because when I was in like middle school and like beginning of high school, I dealt with like a lot of toxic friendships and different things about my self-esteem that weren't that great. So I really wanted to make sure there was a space for
Hmm.
girls to talk about things they were going through and learn how to like who you let into your life and like what's unacceptable and how to set boundaries. Because I really could have used that when I was going through middle school. And yeah, so we had different guest speakers, and people come in that are like women in like business or doing things in their field, kind of telling what they wish they knew when they were younger, and how we can like learn from them. And kind of the overarching theme from them was kind of not caring what other people think of you. And that's something that really made me want to start this, because I really compared myself to a lot of other people. And I think that if girls like kind of stop doing that, then they can find out they can do much more than they really thought they could if they keep comparing themselves to other people.
Well, that's really a fascinating program. I mean, to think that you've been able to reach out to businesswomen and other professional women to come in to talk to younger women about these struggles. I imagine they've been able to share their own experiences that say to, hey, I'm not the only one that I go
Exactly.
through this experience. And I think that's very empowering, to someone, to anyone really, to men or women, for that. So how long have you been doing this project?
Yeah, so that started in May of 2020. And then we took a break during this summer, but it started May of 2020, and then it went through that summer because I really wanted it to go on through like the beginning of the pandemic, because I knew a lot of girls were struggling and didn't really have that connection because everyone was being isolated. And I wanted to make sure there was a space where you could come on Zoom virtually and talk about what you're going through, because I was a virtual student throughout the whole pandemic, and you lost contact with friends and things like that. So it's really important for you to meet new people on Zoom and talk to them about what you're going through.
That's fascinating. So is there a location for this project, or it's pretty much mobile and you go to different locations, to different groups to be able to present this?
Yeah, so it's on Zoom. We've been meeting usually Wednesdays, 6 to 7 p.m. And I've tried to like reach out to different schools, but it's mostly like anyone in middle school can join. They just have to like email me, and yeah, so it's just been virtual for now, but I'm trying to find a space so that like as we get out of the pandemic, it can be like a focal point of where we can meet.
Yeah. So as I listen to you, I wonder how you balance all this. You're a student at Abington Friends. You're the Poet Laureate. You have this group, this initiative that you started. You also, and I read in your bio, which that I didn't read, I think tonight, you didn't insert it in there, that you're also mentor around tennis. You're a tennis player.
Yes.
And can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been playing tennis since 7th or 8th grade. My sisters did that before me because I kind of stopped playing after I got a little injury and I thought I didn't want to do it anymore. But tennis is just a great way for me to stay active and connect with different young people, because I think it's one of the, I think, most rewarding things for me is like mentoring younger kids, because I think, everyone has so much potential and they really just need someone to like look up to and someone to teach them certain things, and they're willing to learn anything. So I usually am a coach with Legacy Youth and Tennis Education, and I teach kids during the summertime different, forehands, backhands, and really something I really like about the program is sometimes we'll have like reading time. So like kids have time to just like do their summer reading and things like that. And I was really like thankful that we were able to do it during 2020, during the pandemic, and do follow all safety precautions because it was a great way for like kids to stay active during that time. So I really appreciated that.
Well, that's absolutely remarkable. You mean all these things that you've got involved in. There was one interview that you did where I think the interviewer asked you or questioned you about a statement that you made. I don't know, probably on your website, about I can't make people care. And also there was another. I think it's you. It said, "Poems don't change the world. Poems help you see the world differently." Can you expand on that? I think they're really important things to say, because there is an expectation of poetry in what it should do, but really how it has to be measured. Can you talk about that? How you view that?
Yes, definitely. So basically, I feel as though, well, poetry is just really powerful, and I think words have power. But if you don't take anything away from a poem, then I don't think it can have that big of an impact on the world. But if you listen to a poem, like listen to what the author's trying to tell you, and you take something away from it, then that you can take what you learned and kind of make an impact on the world. If you don't, I think that goes for anything in life. If you're just listening to someone and you're not really like taking in the information they're telling you, then it's not really going very far. But if you take everything they're telling you and you apply it to your life, then you can make the world a better place. So, but I guess it also depends on like the poem you're writing. So like for my social justice poems, I think, you can take away things from that. But I mean, actually, I think any poem has something to offer if you're willing to listen to it. So kind of that's what I was trying to say, and how in that interview about you can't make people care. I was really just trying to say that in the society, there are some people who just don't want to hear your point of view and don't want to change. And you really can't make anyone change. All you can do is use your voice to shine light on different situations. And then if people listen to you, then you're making a difference.
Yeah. You're sharing your experience of the world with them. And
Yeah.
it's really up to the listener. How do you feel about, poetry in America? Poetry in other countries like in South America or Eastern Europe, or in India, Pakistan. There's really a tradition and a culture to poetry. And it's really a big thing. In America, it's like, oh, you're a poet? Oh, poetry? It's kind of this lukewarm, attachment to it when there's been such great moving poetry and such important poetry that is written. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that it's maybe in your poetry when we talk about the spoken word as opposed to the word, the poet with the page as opposed to the poet on the stage? How do you feel right now where poetry is for where you see it?
Yeah, I think right now poetry is kind of like right. I think during the pandemic, it's definitely kind of become more relevant, but I do believe that lots of people still don't even know what it is, or are really indifferent about it. So I think that's why it's really important to get more like children and kids engaged in it so that they can bring it forth. But I think where poetry is now, it can definitely expand, and not many people like understand it. There's still lots of people base it off of like if they had a bad experience in English class writing a poem or a haiku. And I think that poetry, the thing I love about it is that there's like no limitations, and you can really write whatever you're feeling, and other people can take what they want from it. But yeah, I think other cultures, they really like elevate it, and lots of people right now, they don't understand the power of it. But it's really coming to the surface, and I think more people are getting engaged and really understanding like the impact that it has.
With your poetry, where do you? Well, first, what's your discipline? Or do you write every day? Do you keep like a journal? What's your discipline as far as your art?
Yeah, I definitely try to write every day. I think it's really important for me to just like keep not keep practicing, because I don't do it like it's not like something that I don't feel like forced to do it. It's something that comes really naturally to me because I really enjoy doing it. And
Mhm.
I feel like if I don't do it, then I don't feel that good. So knowing that I can always go to it to help me relieve myself of the thoughts I'm feeling in my head, or if I really need like to express myself an idea, I think poetry really helps me like solve problems, or answers questions that I have in my head. So it's really something I use for a solution. And but I do it all the time. And if I'm just like walking my dog and I think of something, I have to write it down. Yeah. So poetry is just, I think it's always a part of me, and I always have to write something down.
Yeah, great. Now, in your bio, it mentions that you were influenced at a young age by Maya Angelou and Robert Frost, which is a really nice combination. Who now would you say? Who are poets that really hold your interest, and you feel that they're kind of giving you a direction of some sort?
Right now, I'm really, I really like Jericho Brown. I had the pleasure of interviewing him earlier this year, and I think that was just great to for me to like develop the questions about his book, The Tradition, and to really look at the text and see how he's using his words to in a way that really gets to the heart of issues, but in like a way that you can really read it. And he looks at things in just a different perspective. So I really value that. And yeah, I love Jericho Brown.
Hmm. So, mentioning poetry and words, well, this is great conversation, and we're very proud of you as our Youth Poet Laureate. You're
Thank
doing
you.
a lot, and that's tremendous. But we want to hear your poems.
Oh,
So, we have some time set aside for you to read your poems. You want to discuss them. We have a good 25 minutes left in the broadcast, and the stage is yours.
great. Thank you so much. So I have a couple of poems that I'll be reading. First, I'm going to start off with a poem I wrote entitled My Feed. Scrolling through my feed, liking pics I don't like, reading comments that make me wish I looked like that girl. I scroll deeper into my feed. I see parties I wasn't invited to, people who knew me that I don't recognize anymore. Tears scroll down my face, and I wish I could delete them all. But you can't swipe all your scars away. You'll just have to wait until they fade because filters are making you question your own beauty. And is beauty even worth it if you don't believe it yourself? When your comments are filled with compliments, but compliments can't compensate for voids inside your heart. Voids that start to tear apart someone that you see in the mirror every day, but the image keeps getting foggier and you can't wipe that fog away because you're afraid of what is left of you. A broken hearted person on their feed. Wednesdays, I don't check it. But sometimes I forget and I see spam after spam after spam, but I don't expect to see my face there. It's a feeling I've come to cope with: loneliness. Don't apologize for not tagging me. You know what you did, and when you tag someone in the comments, it's really not the same. Now, tears fill my eyes to the point where I can't see. And the only thing that's stopping me from being happy is my feed. Thank you. Um, so that poem was really about like my journey with social media. I found that a lot of times I was looking at it and comparing myself to different people, noticing how I wasn't invited to different parties, seeing that I wasn't tagged in certain posts. And I think I really let social media get the best of me. So I kind of wrote that poem so that other people could hear what I was, how my experience was with social media, and then realize that, wow, someone else feels this way, or understand that it's okay to take a break from it because it can really be toxic sometimes.
So when you were at the library, was it last week in out in Wayne or Lower Mara? I forget where you said,
Oh
but
yeah,
you
Radnor Memorial Library.
rather right. So did you read something that poem? Were the children able to hear that poem?
No, I did. I don't think I read that poem. No, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of like a Tripita and I were doing a workshop about speak your truth and
Oh,
teach
okay.
things. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm sitting here, and the things you talked before about mentoring and about these things about image and uh, self-image. I mean, listening to that poem. I mean, a young person listening to that poem. I imagine it could really resonate with them. So
Yeah.
that's where I feel poetry really can have an impact of somebody starting to explore in themselves. Hey, geez, that's me. And so that's her. So you can share that when you say, well, I can't change the world, but I can tell you what my world was like. And
Yeah.
that's really powerful. So we want to hear more.
Yeah. So this is a poem I wrote entitled Round Trip. Life is like a round trip. The people with privilege are the captains of the ship. They don't want to say that we're sinking, even though that's what we're all thinking. I can't drown. I can't bring myself to die. Not when they think they have the power to make us cry. They stare racism in the eye like it's their friend. They'll do anything to bend the rules for them. I wish that words could cure humanity, maybe free us from insanity, because these ships will keep on sinking and those SOS lights will keep on blinking unless we help. Life is like a round trip and I adore it. Life is like a warship, but we can restore it to its natural glory. Because this story gets gorier and gorier every day, and people think that sinking battleships is a game that we should play, like starting wars is the answer. They spread hate like cancer. They put prefixes on our right to be American, African American, Asian American, Native American. If we kneel during the national anthem, they call us anti-American. Like we have to stand for a country who puts our men on the concrete, cold feet, neck deep in brutality, blood-stained, in pain. They think they own the world because of white supremacy. They take us back so we don't fight back the enemy. They want our culture, but they mock our whole identity. If I fight for justice now, will it come in the next century? We always stay divided. It's like we all decided equality wasn't worth fighting for. This injustice disgusts me. It's impossible to ignore. Thank you. So,
You can continue. That was very
Okay.
powerful. I mean, I wanted to ask you, living in, these times where, the truth is really kind of mangled, what is considered the truth is kind of mangled. How does that really kind of sit with you? How does that play into your poetry?
Yeah, I think for me, I really just kind of focus on like my truth and what I think is true to me. Because most of the time, I think if I'm writing a poem for a specific audience or for a certain person, then I kind of get lost in like what I want them, what I want them to, or what they might want to hear instead of like what I want to share. So I think if I focus on that and telling my story, then it's easier for me to just express myself through that.
Right. Okay.
This next poem is entitled Black Girl. Black girl walks into a room. Without even speaking, people already assume the tone of her voice, the place that she lives, the loves that she's lost, but Black girl doesn't give a about it. Black girl lives her life out loud, so proud of her circle of friends and the journey she's on. Black girl grew up not really knowing who she was. Black girl never really saw her complexion on TV, and the only thing she knew about Black history was that white people felt guilty. Because during all the conversations about slavery, they always seemed to look at her and apologize. The only Black girl in the room. It's hard to see yourself when everyone in the room is programmed to put you down. Look around. Who have you judged before you even had a conversation with them? If I don't like you, just know I took the time to evaluate your character before I subtracted myself out of your equation. And no, life is not a math problem. Though I'm always trying to find the answers, it's more like an English class, finding different meanings for metaphors and what symbolizes what. Because I was in history class and noticed the chalkboard, how white chalk is constantly writing over Black ideas. And if you thought to yourself, that isn't a race issue, then you are a part of the problem. Even when the blackboard is erased, whitewashing is still prominent, making my people internalize that they are less than their white counterparts, making us go back to the drawing board while the white chalk screeches on our melanin like the white masters used to rape our beautiful Black women on the plantation. Black girl feels like she is constantly being told she isn't good enough. And in this race game, her trying 10 times harder just gets her to the starting line, while others have already finished the race. Question: when you are finished the race, do you ever look back? Because that's where she is. Black girl just started her self-love journey because she's been taught self-hate in a PWI since 3rd grade, where her hair was the best petting zoo in the school. And she had to make sure no one saw her as a fool because she felt like she had the weight of a million on her shoulders. She carried rocks. The rocks turned into boulders, and Black girl couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't stand the disrespect, couldn't stand the lack of representation, couldn't stand carrying their guilt too, couldn't stand every word she said being seen as a threat. And when she spoke, she could see how people took a step back, afraid that Black girl is gonna clap back, afraid that Black girl is gonna crack, afraid that Black girl is gonna smack somebody in the face. Well, Black girl is tired of being misused. Black girl is not a monster. Not be afraid. Black girl is not a dinner plate you can eat when you're hungry. Black girl is not a pillow you can cry all your tears into and make her feel sorry for your mistakes as well. Black girl is not loud. You just never listened. Black girl is powerful. I am powerful. I am Black girl. Thank you.
Well, that is very evident that you are a Black girl and how you digested your own experience into all of that poem. Very powerful. Once again, I go back to, other young women or young men hearing that poetry and the kind of impact of your description of that. I mean, that's really a wake up call, and that's when I think that poetry is at its best, is that, it can get people's attention because there is a lot of poetry, frankly speaking, that is confusing to me. I'm a poet myself. It takes all kinds of turns. And I sometimes think that people are trying to trick me, but, that I didn't get the riddle right. But with your poetry, it's really all out front there. There's no riddle there. You're just right out there and telling the truth. And that's very, very beautiful and very, very powerful. So, and of course, we want to continue to hear more as the time that we have left.
Great. Thank you. So this is a poem I wrote entitled, Love is not a battlefield. Love is not a battlefield. It is a union many will never understand. Love is not bearing arms. It is holding hands. There are no weapons. There should be no weapons. Because love is peace. It is two journeys that collide but do not explode. Love is not a bomb. You should not avoid it because you're afraid of getting hurt. Instead, explore it. Love is a vast terrain, mountains, marshes, plains, plateaus, all different, all beautiful, all love. Love is not violent. Blood should not be shed on every encounter. It is not a game. It should not feel like you're losing. Love is not a fight, but a compromise, not a flight, but a stay. Love is not a battlefield. It is a union many will never understand. Thank you. This is a poem entitled, Do You Ever Wonder? Do you ever wonder if it's gunshots or it's thunder? If someone's going 6 feet under, or you just miss the lightning, I choose to believe it's thunder. I don't think I could stand another life being turned into a number. Do you ever wonder if when people will be treated as people, how many lives until we're treated as equal? People walk with privilege strapped to their back, guns ready to counteract somebody's complexion. Try walking through life with constant rejection of your identity because stereotypes are all they see. Just because I'm Black doesn't make me less American. Just because you stole it doesn't make this your land. I won't stand for the excuse, I thought they were a criminal. That seems quite trivial after they're dead. I'll spend my whole life trying to get unity stuck in your head. I can run without being a thief. I can cough without being a virus. A whole race can't look like the enemy. I can't believe you're still trying to divide us. I still have my whole life ahead of me, and I'm not giving up now. You can't silence my voice. And when you come for one of us, we rise up. You give us no choice. Thank you. For that poem, I wrote both Round Trip and Do You Ever Wonder at the same time. So I was kind of, I wrote all of my thoughts about kind of what was going on at the time, May 2020. And then I kind of broke it up into 2 separate poems, because usually when I'm writing, I get all my thoughts down and then I take like the bits of gold out of both of them and then manipulate it how I'd like and write another poem from that. So Do You Ever Wonder was kind of when I was hearing like lots of, loud noises outside. And it kind of got to the point where I was like, do you ever wonder if like it's just gunshots or it's thunder, or if you're hearing something else? Kind of to make yourself feel better about kind of what's going on outside.
Mm-hmm. Are these poems in your book, Daydreaming?
Yes.
Okay. Have we shown? Oh, there we go. There is Daydreaming. And where, Cydney, can we obtain a copy of that?
Yes. So you can get a copy of Daydreaming. You can get it on Amazon or on my website.
Okay.
Both are fine. And I also have my ebook there as well. So you can get it like on Kindle as well. But yeah, so you can go to either cydtalks.com, but each will, like, if you go to my website, it will take you to
Okay.
Amazon if you want to buy it there, or you can buy it on my website.
So that's cydtalks.com. Okay.
Yes.
And that'll get people to your website. I prefer that we go to your website to buy it rather than Amazon. So great. Thank you for telling us that. And thanks that those poems, these powerful poems, are in there. Can you continue to share some of those with us?
So this is a poem entitled Andre Davis. It was 7 o'clock on a Friday. My legs could barely take me home. Boredom tends to lower my eyelids and stiffen my legs till I feel like a sun-drunk turtle. But my summer popsicle stick legs were willing to melt in the heat just to get my feet on the Ferris wheel. You caught my eye like a bullseye in the water gun game. I stepped onto the ride that I'd die for, and there you were, flicking the switch and making my heart rise in the air. Every time I went around the Ferris wheel, you tried to make me giggle like I was a little girl in an ice cream shop with sprinkles on her nose. And the best part was, you didn't give me butterflies. You just made me smile at 7:07 on a Friday in June. Thank you. That poem was just about my experience going to Summerfest right next to Penn's Landing and going on the Ferris wheel, because I really wanted to go on the Ferris wheel this summer, and I got the chance to. So that was kind of an experience.
Wow, that's terrific. You still have time. Cydney?
Great. This is a poem I wrote entitled Blue. I love a boy with great lakes for eyes. I get lost in the waves, but his words bring me back to safety. Have you ever met someone who questions the world but wants to share their queries with you? He is better than the giving tree, for we exchange words like people exchange selfies. I love a boy with great lakes for eyes, so bold and so wide. I live off every tide and want our futures to collide. He screams in my head, but whispers in reality. I'll tell my kids I knew you. My heart faded blue. You don't know my love for you grows like waves of a tsunami in the deep end of my mind. I know I'll never be yours, but at least I have your waves of words. Thank you. This is a poem entitled, or it's inspired by a James Shea poem entitled Haiku. Upon meeting you at the Waffle Bar in Savannah, Georgia, upon knowing I had to know more, upon hearing you talk about getting kicked out of Girl Scouts, upon wondering if I should just eat cereal, upon waiting for my waffle to bake for 2 whole minutes in silence, upon back and forth smiles, eyes locking, upon me asking for your number, upon me giggling in my hotel room and my roommates asking, why? How could I tell them I met a girl at a waffle bar in Savannah, Georgia, and I haven't stopped smiling since? Thank you. And then this is a poem called The First Poem. First, the poem you wouldn't know this was a poem until I told you this is a poem. Then the poem that didn't sound like nothing gold can stay, so I trashed it. But I had to walk all the way to the kitchen to do so because the trash can in my bedroom was full. Now, the poem my sister thinks is too vulnerable. Next, the poem the stars always knew I could write. Then, the poem that got sucked into the vacuum cleaner, but I was too disgusted by lint to salvage said poem. Next, the poem that reminds me of Changes by David Bowie because I still don't know what I was waiting for. Thank you.
We have time for about one more, but I wanted to ask you before we jump into that is what is the next steps for Cydney? With our poetry, is there another book that's in the pipeline? And so here you're going into your senior year, and what are your plans for the future? And how can we keep in touch with you? How can we keep seeing some of your work?
Yeah. So I mean, for the future, I mean, I'm definitely not positive with anything, but I know that whatever I do, I'm gonna be focusing on poetry and trying to inspire kids and educate them on what it means to love themselves and express themselves through poetry. I'm definitely going to go to college. I'm still trying to decide where I want to go. But there's definitely another book in the works. I know earlier in the pandemic, I said I was working on a book that's kind of talking about my experience going to Paris and how that affected me and with my friendships and things like that. And that one's still in the works, but I'm trying to work on another collection of poetry, kind of like, the sequel to Daydreaming. That kind of just touches on a lot of poems I've been writing because I've been writing a lot during the pandemic. And so I mean, if you read Daydreaming and you like that, there's another collection of poetry that I'm writing currently. And then I'm hoping the book that I write about Paris is kind of different and kind of follows a little different storyline because I like different books of poetry that have like a very linear pathway that the reader can go through. So
Right. So we are running out of time, and I wanted to really thank you so much for finally being our featured guest here on Philly Loves Poetry. And I have to say, as a host here, over 5 years, very much impressed with you as a Philadelphian, and what you're doing outside of poetry and with poetry is really remarkable. And we as Philadelphia poets should be very proud of you, and we should support you in whatever way we can as you're going forward. And of course, with Moonstone, you always can rely on us. And so, I mean, my kind of parting statement with, once again, as I do, is the Moonstone Art Center sponsors close to 100 poetry events a year, readings. We have this program that's once a month, but Larry, even when the live version of Moonstone Poetry Series had to go away, it became virtual. And he's still continued to have readings. For example, on August the 15th, there's a very fascinating program that Larry's bringing. It's really international. It's called Poetry of Displacement, and it's bringing together three poets with overlapping connections to one another through the places they have called home over the course of their lives, seeking to explore the ideas of home, migration, citizenship, belonging, as well as borders, unhoming, and disowning. And so the poets are all connected in some way with Ireland or Irish. The person that's really helping to pull together with Larry is Fiona Bolger, who is the author of a compound of words. She lives in Ireland and India, and she's the co-director of Dublin's Writers Forum. Also a Dublin-based artist, Chandrika Mariana Mohan, has been published in the Writings Home, the New Irish Poets, and other anthologies. And finally, Deepa Victor, author of Curb and Natural Subjects, has appeared in many different journals. So it should be a really exciting program. But Larry has pulled together programs like this of international poets from France, from Russia, from Ukraine, and this will not end with the pandemic. I think this is going to become a permanent fixture where Moonstone can really be a way of bringing all these voices to Philadelphia without having to get on a plane or get on a train or whatever, and that we can get an opportunity to enjoy this. And I say that, as I've said in closing out this program, is that Larry and Moonstone need your support. There are operating costs that have to be covered. So reach out to Moonstone Art Center, Inc., and do what you can to give your support to that program. Thank you, everybody, for looking in tonight. Thank you, Cydney, again, for a fabulous interview and a fabulous reading. Good night.